This is our presentation for comparing professional diversity and communication between Japan, Sweden, and America by Morgan and Kira.
In a professional environment, we will take a look at the differences and similarities to be observed in international business interaction across several continents, North America's USA, along with Europe, Sweden, and Japan of Asia, to find potential trends and gain a deeper understanding into successful relationships and their maintenance.
The advantages of a diverse workforce, there are several. A diverse workforce enables an improved worldview by bringing together individuals of different ethnicities, genders, and nationalities to consider various scenarios from multiple perspectives. Companies can enjoy success with a uniform workforce, but it will be limited, and diversifying your team will maximize the growth and success of your company. So some examples of this would be that in the 2021 Global Gender Gap Report, Sweden was in fifth place for an equal workforce as far as gender is concerned. America was in 30th place, and Japan was in 120th place. Whereas in 2025, Sweden was in sixth place, America was in 42nd place, and Japan was in 118th place. And this can also be compared to their presence in the 2025 Forbes Global 2000 report. Sweden had 27 companies listed in this report that amount to a value of $677.78 billion. America had 612 companies listed, amounting to 50.2 trillion, and Japan had 180 companies listed, amounting to 4.1 trillion. And the movement that these companies or these countries made can be directly tied to their population as well as their equality initiatives. Sweden has a significantly smaller population compared to America and Japan, but they mandate DEI in the workplace, which is why they rank so highly, whereas America is dropping because they are actively rolling back DEI initiatives, and Japan is having a little bit of growth. And 80% of their companies plan to continue promoting DEI despite the initiatives that America is promoting.
So, when it comes to intercultural communications, especially professionally, there are obviously going to be some things to consider. Potential linguistic gaps include the general linguistic ability. For example, in Asian countries, the proficiency can be lower at the business level, even if there's a positive growth trend. Reception to an interaction with the environment and its stimuli, of course, having been brought up differently and taught differently, having brought different perspectives into the environment will show us some differences in how we accept and interact with our environment, especially in attitudes. They can overlap and they can differ. So, with different environments and attitude differences, we will all be integrating them and have to be mindful of how we all come together in the business world.
Regarding overcoming ethnocentrism and stereotyping, Japan and America both hold several positive and negative stereotypes about one another, whereas Sweden does not hold specific stereotypes about other countries. They are a very open-minded and progressive culture, and they believe in allowing you to prove your value for yourself rather than based on the reputation of your origin. Limiting ethnocentric tendencies will help to ease tensions when interacting with new clients and reassure them that stereotypes are not always true. There are several similarities and differences between the legal systems in America, Japan, and Sweden. In America, the laws are enacted by the state and federal governments, and regarding business law, contracts are interpreted literally. Japan has a centralized government that only allows enforcement power to the local governments, and their contracts are based on or are interpreted based on intent. And Swedish law is enacted by the Swedish parliament, and the legal framework incorporates EU law and international treaties to reflect the 1995 joining of the EU. Their contracts are interpreted based on mutual intent if the literal meaning is not clear, and they also have formal requirements for the validity of a contract only occurring in rare scenarios. Ethical differences include that ethical leadership is a priority for Japan, and they view their reputation and personal relationships essential to success. Swedish businesses hold transparency as a core value, and there's a requirement that companies must publish sustainability reports regularly. They discuss policies openly with stakeholders, and they provide opportunities for feedback from the community. And in America, businesses are also held to high ethical standards by stakeholders and auditors, but the general American society is more forgiving of ethical shortcomings than what you might find in Japan.
Social norms and customs. In Japan, individual convenience is often forgone for the sake of workplace harmony. That means sort of being more mindful of the common good, so to speak. Somewhat of social pressure exists to encourage out-of-office outings in Japan as well. Of course, since the 1990s, policies on that have begun to change, and it is quite a bit more liberal. People hold much more strength in refusing if need be, refusing drinks offered, etc. But it is still generally acceptable and appropriate to participate in nomikai, which is drinking parties, and going to karaoke to keep positive relationships even out of office. Junior and senior relationship etiquette to be discussed again later. It has a strong precedence to the latter in Japan, and Sweden is quite a bit more open in that regard, although, of course, ageism is systematic and found anywhere. Western countries are more progressive in that regard. As far as nonverbal communications, it is greatly important to be mindful, especially in more conservative spaces such as professional environments. Respect for personal space is, of course, going to be very, very necessary, but it is especially important to maintain when interacting with Japanese and Swedish partners. Handshake etiquette, although the handshake as a greeting is gaining somewhat of a popularity in Japan, it is mostly through interaction with the West, and it is more polite to bow. However, in Sweden, there are some generally accepted rules regarding handshakes, i.e., firm handshake to show respect, and women will generally tend to shake a little looser. Exchanging of tokens for a pleasant relationship with generally observed rules and etiquette is less common in the US, other than as a specific gesture towards any sort of large events when compared to Swedish and Japanese businesses. And of course, as mentioned previously, body language, bowing, respect of personal space, etc., will play a big role in the perception of us. Age differences are, of course, the respect towards one's elders is a sentiment present anywhere. Western countries tend to have much more pushback when it comes at the expense of juniors, for example. In Japan, age precedence exists very, very prominently at the expense of newer workers who have served less and those who have been there longer, even regarding new ideas, will be seen as wiser and given more power as a vote. In Sweden, the gap is much narrower, prioritizing new ideas over quote-unquote politics, so to speak. And the US, again, although the system allows for much to be desired, the gap is narrow compared to Japan. Gender differences are once again systematic, fewer opportunities being available to Japanese women as opposed to their male counterparts, especially in higher management positions, similarly to any country, of course, but there is somewhat more progress in Western countries as of now, Stricter laws regarding gender disparity exist in Sweden, but conservative values systematically are encountered worldwide.
Religion in Japan, America, and Sweden vary greatly. The Japanese consider themselves secular and only interact with religion on special occasions, such as weddings, funerals, and holidays. The earliest religions in Japan are Shinto, Buddhism, and Confucianism, with Christianity existing only as a minor modern presence. Most Americans identify as Christian, with the next largest deeming themselves unaffiliated and the smallest percentage identify themselves as another religion, such as Judaism or Buddhism. And almost all Swedes are born Lutheran, but most recognize themselves as agnostic. Immigration has brought the presence of Roman Catholic, Orthodox, Baptist, Muslim, Jewish, and Buddhist faiths to Sweden. All three countries have laws covering their citizens that experience disability. Japanese law covers people with any degree of disability, as well as more specific populations that experience extreme restriction or difficulty. American law requires inclusion and equal access for those with disabilities, and disability services are available to anyone regardless of citizenship. The Swedish government has created several acts and regulations, such as the Discrimination Act, to promote equality among disabled individuals in the workforce. There are several resources given by the government, including educational opportunities, housing accommodations, and transportation. In order to adapt to other business cultures, it's important to research the country's customs, mannerisms, and standard business practices before traveling. In Japan, you will be expected to maintain a respectful distance and greet a client or colleague with a bow and a smile. And the typical business day lasts 12 to 14 hours. In Sweden, they expect you themselves to be introduced to you by third-party individuals. They appreciate the use of formal terms. Mrs. is represented by fru and Mr. is represented by er. If the individual is under 18 and female, they are referred to as fröken. And you should wait for your Swede colleagues to use your first name before you use theirs in conversation. It is how they signify that they are comfortable with you. Giving gifts in other business cultures is very much the norm. You should wait until your Swedish partner extends a gift before you make your own offer. And due to ethical laws around bribery, gifts should be symbolic, thoughtful, and modest, and should be a company branded item or souvenirs from your home country.
As far as extending tokens to Japanese partners, it is generally acceptable to extend them at the beginning of a relationship or before a large deal, considering the setting, occasion, and recipient to choose a present. For example, if choosing one for an entire team or office, confections will be acceptable, although if dealing with an individual, something such as office supplies from respected brands will be very, very well received, often paired with a set phrase, somewhat self-deprecating to show humility. Improving intercultural communication skills in the workforce, it is indispensable, and with careful consideration and understanding, we will broaden our perspective to better accommodate our visiting partners and during trips outside of home. Future research is likely to focus on negotiation methods, dispute resolution, and criticism.
So, 5 tips that you can take away from this for conducting business in Sweden. Approach all interactions with an open mind. Respect the separation of work life and home life. If you offer a gift, it should be a small memento or something that holds sentimental value rather than monetary value. Respect personal space and quiet time in conversation, and honor your commitments.
Similarly, much like Sweden, we will remain polite and professional. Efforts at maintaining harmony will be recognized, as it is important to remain humble and consider everybody else. Considering out-of-place interaction when possible, being mindful of body language, and of course, verbal language. Punctuality, held as a virtue, will go to great lengths, and respect of others' time and resources. We will conduct successful interaction with Japanese partners.
In conclusion, mutual adaptation and respect is necessary to guarantee a smooth business relationship that will function efficiently, as well as prevent any awkward or uncomfortable situations that you may find yourself in. Keeping the previously mentioned tips in mind when interacting with other countries, specifically Japan and Sweden, will prove beneficial to the success of your company.